The soft blue glow of monitoring screens illuminated Commander Park's face as he stared at the readout. Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon wasn't known for excitement. Most days were spent cataloging stellar phenomena and routing commercial traffic. Today was different. "Sir, I've isolated the signal. It's definitely from New Eden." Lieutenant Kim's voice carried a tremor as she adjusted the comm array. Park leaned forward. "Clean it up. I want to hear everything." The transmission crackled through the station speakers. "Under attack. Unknown vessels. Massive casualties. They came without warning." Static interrupted before continuing, recording their fleet position at coordinates. More numbers followed before the message abruptly ended. "Try to reestablish contact," Park ordered, already opening a priority channel to Earth. Lieutenant Kim worked frantically at her console, fingers flying across the controls. Her face grew more concerned with each passing minute. "Sir, I can't get through. All channels to New Eden are dead." Commander Park stood up straight, his face grim. "Record everything we have. I'm calling this in." He walked to the secure communications room, feeling the weight settle on his shoulders. New Eden was home to over 15,000 colonists. If they were truly under attack. The emergency transmission took only moments to send, but the wait for a response felt eternal. Park paced the small monitoring room, glancing occasionally at the main screen where the last known coordinates from New Eden blinked steadily. "Commander," called Ensign Ta from his station. "High Command acknowledges receipt. They're escalating to Defense Council level. We're ordered to maintain our position and continue monitoring." Park nodded. "Maintain full sensor sweep. If anything even remotely resembling those attack ships comes near our sector, I want to know immediately." Hours passed in tense silence. The station crew worked with unusual focus, each person aware of what was at stake. Park reviewed the fragmented message repeatedly, trying to extract any additional information. The distress call had been sent by Colony Director Jun, a woman Park had met during training. Her voice had been steady despite the chaos in the background. At 400 hours, Lieutenant Kim straightened suddenly in her chair. "Commander, priority transmission from Earth. The Defense Council is convening an emergency session." Within 6 hours of receiving New Eden's distress call, the United Defense Council chambers were filled with military brass and government officials. Admiral Hannah Lee stood at the center, her decorated uniform stark against the polished table. "New Eden has gone silent," she stated flatly. "The attack patterns match nothing in our databases." The council members exchanged worried glances. Admiral Lee had warned them for years about potential threats beyond their borders. Her insistence on building a hidden war fleet had met with resistance, but she had persevered. Councillor Bake shook his head. "We can't just launch our entire defense force based on a fragmented distress call. This is precisely the scenario we built the fleet for," Admiral Lee countered, placing her palm on the table surface. A holographic display appeared, showing hundreds of dormant warships. Protocol Mimesis was designed for this moment. The hologram rotated slowly, displaying ships unlike anything the public had ever seen. These were not the standard patrol vessels or colony escorts. These were weapons of war, built in secret orbital facilities and hidden throughout the solar system. "The colony sent attack vector information before going silent," Lee continued. "The data suggests we're dealing with a technologically advanced species with aggressive intent. New Eden isn't a military target. It's a peaceful farming colony. This was a deliberate attack on civilians." General Min frowned deeply. "How do we know this isn't some kind of natural disaster? A communications failure?" Admiral Lee tapped her tablet, bringing up the audio recording. "Listen carefully." The council members heard the same fragmented message Commander Park had received, but Lee had enhanced certain sections. Behind Director Jun's voice, they could hear the unmistakable sounds of energy weapons and explosions. "The colony's orbital defenses were minimal," Lee continued. "They wouldn't stand a chance against a determined attack. If we don't respond immediately, we risk losing more colonies." Councillor Bake still looked unconvinced. The fleet has never been tested in actual combat. We don't know if it will perform as expected. We designed it to adapt, Lee said firmly. Athena's combat AI can adjust tactics faster than any human commander. But every hour we delay puts more lives at risk. The council debated intensely for nearly 2 hours. Some argued for diplomatic attempts first. Others wanted to send only a portion of the fleet. Admiral Lee stood her ground. "This isn't about showing force," she said finally. "This is about survival. Whoever attacked New Eden did so without warning or provocation. They've shown their intentions clearly. We must respond with our full capability." The council called for a vote. Admiral Lee watched as each member registered their decision. The results appeared on her tablet. 7-4. 4 against. "Protocol Nemesis is authorized," announced the council chairperson. "Admiral Lee, you have operational command of the fleet. Your primary objectives are to ascertain the status of New Eden and neutralize the threat." As the chamber emptied, Admiral Lee remained, staring at the projection of humanity's secret arsenal. Years of planning, building, and preparing had led to this moment. She thought briefly of her brother-in-law and his family who had moved to New Eden just last year. Were they still alive? Had the attackers taken prisoners? "Begin the awakening sequence," she ordered quietly. Her aide nodded and transmitted the activation codes. Deep in space, dormant warships began powering up their systems. In underground bunkers, military personnel received emergency summons. On the Lazarus station, the HFY Corps initiated its war protocols. Humanity had been attacked without warning or mercy. Now, they would respond in kind. As Admiral Lee left the council chamber, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The fleet she had designed would now face its trial by fire, and the future of the human race hung in the balance. The Lazarus station hung in Earth's orbit like a sleeping giant. For 20 years, the station had been officially listed as a research facility. In reality, it housed humanity's response to a universe that had proven far more hostile than anyone had imagined during the first disastrous contact decades ago. Admiral Lee's shuttle docked with minimal ceremony. Director Choi greeted her at the airlock, his normally stern face showing unusual tension. "Is it time?" he asked simply. She nodded. "Activate HFY." The two officers moved through corridors that few humans had ever seen. The station's outer sections housed scientific labs that produced real research as part of their cover. But as they moved deeper, the true purpose of Lazarus Station revealed itself. They passed rooms filled with weapons unlike any in humanity's public arsenal. Technicians in military uniforms worked silently, each aware of what activation orders meant. "How long until the fleet is ready?" Admiral Lee asked as they walked. Director Choi checked his tablet. HFY can have the automated vessels ready within the hour. The crewed ships will take longer. We've begun calling in personnel, but many were placed in civilian roles as cover. Lee nodded. "Prioritize the automated dreadnoughts. We need to show force immediately." They reached a heavily guarded section. 6 soldiers snapped to attention as Lee approached. They moved through 3 security checkpoints before reaching a sealed chamber at the station's core. Director Choi placed his hand on a scanner, followed by a retinal scan and voice authorization. "Initiating HFY startup protocol," announced the station's VI. The room hummed to life. Screens flickered on as a holographic sphere materialized above the central console. The sphere pulsed with soft blue light, almost like a heartbeat. "Athena, this is Admiral Hannah Lee. Authorization code Prometheus 7 Delta 9. Activate Protocol Nemesis." The sphere pulsed brighter. "Protocol Nemesis acknowledged, Admiral. I am fully operational. Fleet systems coming online." Lee watched as the holographic display expanded, showing hundreds of vessels scattered throughout the solar system. Hidden in asteroid belts, disguised as commercial stations, or kept in underground bases on Mars and Luna, humanity's secret fleet had remained dormant for decades. Through the observation window, Lee watched as the nearest ships began to illuminate. Each vessel was a marvel of engineering. Quantum-shielded hulls, antimatter weaponry arrays, and experimental FTL drives that could bend the fabric of space. "Your sister was on New Eden, wasn't she?" Director Choi asked quietly. Lee's jaw tightened. Her family settled there 3 years ago. "My niece just turned 5. Choi looked away, giving her a moment of privacy. He had known Admiral Lee for 15 years, working alongside her to build this fleet. He had never seen her show weakness, and she wouldn't start now. "We'll find them," he said simply. Lee nodded once, then turned back to Athena's display. "Status report." The AI's voice was calm and clear. "All dormant fleet vessels are awakening. Weapons systems are charging. Defensive systems are online. Self-repair protocols are active. Long-range scanners are calibrating. In the docking bays below, automated systems loaded the final armaments. Missiles designed to pierce any known shielding technology were moved into launch tubes. Energy weapons powered up for the first time outside of testing. Athena, display New Eden's last known coordinates and the attack vector information they sent," Lee ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing a star map with highlighted routes. Athena's voice remained steady as she reported. "Based on the trajectory data and estimated speed of the attacking vessels, I project they originated from the Procyon system." "Procyon? There's nothing there," Choi said. "There's nothing we know about," Lee corrected him. "Clearly something or someone has been hiding their presence." On a secondary screen, personnel assignments appeared. Athena had already matched available officers with vessels based on skill sets and experience. Lee noticed her own name assigned to the flagship, Retribution. "Fleet at 98% operational readiness," HFY reported. "Projected launch window in 17 minutes. "What about the 2%? Lee asked. 3 vessels require manual override due to long-term dormancy," HFY replied. "Technical teams are addressing the issues now." Lee turned to Choi. "I want those ships operational. Every vessel matters." "Yes, Admiral." He left to personally oversee the repairs. Lee stood alone with ATHENA, watching as more ships lit up across the solar system. 20 years of planning, building, and waiting. The fleet had been her life's work, born from the ashes of humanity's first, disastrous contact with alien life. Few knew the full truth of that encounter, how close Earth had come to destruction before a lucky shot disabled the alien craft. "Admiral," Athena said, interrupting her thoughts, "the Defense Council is requesting a final briefing before launch." "Put them through," Lee ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the 12 council members. Their faces showed a mixture of resolve and fear. "Admiral Lee," said the council chair, "is the fleet ready?" "Yes. We launch in 15 minutes. And you believe this force will be sufficient?" Lee's expression remained neutral. "The fleet was designed to face unknown threats. We incorporated every technological advancement, every tactical lesson, and every strategic advantage we could create. If this force isn't sufficient, nothing we have will be." The council members exchanged glances. One of them asked, "What are your orders for the fleet if you encounter the hostiles?" "To protect human lives at all costs," Lee replied. "We will attempt communication, but we will not hesitate to use force if threatened." The council nodded in agreement. The chair spoke again. "Godspeed, Admiral. The future of humanity is in your hands." The transmission ended, leaving Lee alone with the AI once more. Athena's sphere pulsed steadily. "Fleet at 100% readiness. Admiral, all vessels await your command." Lee took a deep breath. "Begin launch sequence." Across the solar system, hundreds of warships activated their engines. From Earth, Mars, and the Moon, people watched in wonder as previously hidden vessels rose into space. The launch created a spectacle visible from Earth's surface. Hundreds of engines igniting simultaneously, pushing humanity's vengeance toward the stars. As Admiral Lee boarded her shuttle to the flagship Retribution, she thought of her sister and her family on New Eden. The fleet would reach the colony in days instead of the years it would take conventional ships. She hoped they would find survivors. The Retribution's engines glowed with blue fire as it pulled away from Lazarus Station. Behind it, humanity's war fleet assembled in formation. They would protect humanity or avenge it. Either way, the galaxy would remember this day. Lieutenant Commander Sung checked the tactical displays as the fleet exited hyperspace. The journey that would have taken conventional ships years had been accomplished in days. All vessels reporting nominal status, Commander, reported Ensign Ju from the communication station. The view that greeted them at New Eden stole the breath from every officer on the bridge. The colony's orbital stations hung in pieces. The surface, once covered in lush farmland and gleaming settlements, now showed the scars of orbital bombardment. Commander Sung had visited New Eden once, 3 years ago. He remembered green hills and clear lakes. The colony had been humanity's pride, proof that people could create beauty even on distant worlds. Now it was a ruined wasteland. Athena, scan for life signs, ordered Captain Han from the command chair. Detecting approximately 2,000 human life signs. Most are concentrated in subterranean structures. The AI responded. Caution advised. Also detecting 11 non-human signatures in orbit. Configuration matches witnesses' descriptions of attack vessels. 2,000 survivors, out of 15,000 colonists. The bridge crew exchanged grim looks as they processed what this meant. Captain Han nodded to tactical. Deploy reconnaissance drones. I want visual confirmation before we engage. Commander Sung supervised the launch of 20 stealth drones. The small unmanned craft spread out, their advanced cloaking systems making them nearly invisible. The drone's cameras showed the alien vessels up close for the first time. The ships were unlike anything humans had seen before. They had no clear front or back, just curved sections that seemed to flow into each other. Their hulls glowed with a faint purple light that pulsed in patterns. Recording all visual data, Sung reported. ATGNA is analyzing their design now. The scouts were detected almost immediately. 3 alien vessels broke formation and accelerated toward the human fleet. Their technology is more advanced than we anticipated. ATGNA observed as energy readings spiked, adjusting shield frequencies to compensate. Captain Han stood from his chair. All vessels, battle stations, weapons hot, but hold fire until my command. The alien ships moved in perfect coordination, spreading out to flank the human fleet. They fired first, beams of energy that shifted color as they traveled through space. Shields holding at 87%, reported the tactical officer. Han nodded. Return fire. Target the propulsion systems. The human fleet responded with a coordinated barrage. Antimatter missiles streaked toward the alien vessels, followed by concentrated energy beams. The first exchange was brief but informative. The alien vessels employed weapons that could partially penetrate quantum shields, but their maneuverability was lacking. 2 alien craft were destroyed before the third retreated. The remaining enemy vessels are falling back to the far side of the planet. ATGNA reported. Keep weapons locked on them. Han ordered. Commander Sung, prepare a rescue team. We need to get those survivors off planet immediately. Sung led the first shuttle down to the surface. Landing near one of the stronger life sign clusters, they found the entrance to an emergency bunker. Colonial militia guards met them with raised weapons until they confirmed the rescuers were human. Inside the bunker, hundreds of colonists huddled in cramped conditions. Many were injured, and all showed signs of trauma. Medical teams moved among them, providing emergency care and preparing the most critical cases for evacuation. A rescue team found survivors in one of the colony's emergency bunkers. Among them was Dr. Yoon, the colony's lead xenobiologist. They called themselves the Eric, she explained in the medical bay, her voice hoarse. Their communication relies on light frequencies outside our visual range. We've been studying them since they first appeared at the edge of our system. Dr. Yoon looked thin and exhausted. Her lab coat was torn and stained with blood. Commander Sung offered her water, which she drank greedily. They arrived 3 weeks ago, she continued. At first they just observed. We tried to establish communication using standard protocols. They responded with simple light patterns that we began to translate. What happened? Captain Han asked. Everything seemed peaceful. They shared basic mathematical concepts, then simple biological information. We thought we were making progress. She closed her eyes briefly. Then, without warning, they attacked. Their first strike destroyed our main communication array and defense systems. The orbital stations were next. She handed Captain Han a data drive. This contains everything we learned. Their ships have a structural weakness where their propulsion systems connect to their power cores. How did you discover this? Sung asked. The colony defense forces managed to damage one ship before they were destroyed. We recorded everything. She looked up at them with haunted eyes. They're methodical. They attacked our food production facilities first, then water processing, then power. They were going to starve us out if we survived the initial attack. Commander Sung studied the data. Athena, can you integrate this information into our tactical systems? Already processing, Commander. I have located the alien fleet's staging area. They appear to be gathering in the Proxima Centauri system. The medical bay's door opened, and Admiral Lee entered. The room fell silent as she approached Dr. Yoon. Doctor, I understand you were leading the first contact team, Lee said. Yoon nodded. Yes, Admiral. Did they give any reason for their attack? Any warning at all? None that we understood. Yoon hesitated, but there was something. Just before they opened fire, they transmitted a final message. We've partially translated it. It said something like containment protocol activated. Admiral Lee's expression darkened. They see us as a threat to be contained or eliminated, Sung added quietly. Lee turned to Captain Han. How many survivors have we evacuated so far? Just over 500. We're working as quickly as possible. Speed it up. I want everyone off this planet in 6 hours. Lee's voice was firm. We can't risk leaving anyone behind if the aliens return in force. Rescue operations continued around the clock. Shuttles landed and took off continuously, bringing survivors to the fleet's medical ships. Many told similar stories: sudden attacks, no warning, systematic destruction. Admiral Lee reviewed all the data they had gathered. The alien technology was advanced, but not unbeatable. Their tactics showed intelligence and coordination, but also patterns that could be exploited. In her private quarters aboard the flagship, Lee studied the images of the alien vessels. The data from Dr. Yoon had been invaluable, highlighting weaknesses that might never have been discovered in the heat of battle. Admiral, Athena's voice came through the room's speakers. The evacuation is complete. All surviving colonists are aboard the fleet. And my sister's family, Lee asked quietly. I regret that they were not among the survivors. Lee closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself one moment of grief before returning to her duties. Have the fleet commanders assemble in the virtual briefing room. Minutes later, she addressed the gathered officers. The faces of 24 ship captains looked back at her from screens around the room. The Eric attacked without provocation or warning, she began. They targeted civilians and infrastructure with the clear intent to eliminate all human presence. We now know they're gathering additional forces in the Proxima Centauri system. She displayed the tactical data. Athena has identified weaknesses in their vessels. We will exploit these weaknesses. We will show them that humanity will not be an easy target. Admiral Lee's orders came through moments later to all ships in the fleet. Pursue and engage. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in tight formation. Before them, spread across the Proxima Centauri system, was an alien armada 3 times their size. Hundreds of Eric vessels hung against the backdrop of space, their purple hulls gleaming in the light of the system's red dwarf star. Battle stations ordered Admiral Lee from her flagship, Athena, begin tactical analysis. The AI's voice was calm. The Eric vessels are arranging in a spherical defensive formation. Their flagship is positioned at coordinates marked on your display. On the bridge of the flagship Retribution, officers moved with practiced efficiency. No one had ever faced an alien fleet in combat before, yet their training took over. Weapons officers checked targeting systems. Shield technicians monitored defensive arrays. Communication specialists maintained the network linking all human vessels. "They've detected us," reported the sensor officer. "Their vessels are adjusting formation." Admiral Lee stood tall, her face showing no fear. "Implement Battle Plan Alpha. Target their command vessels first." The battle began with a coordinated alpha strike from humanity's warships. Antimatter torpedoes streaked across space, followed by concentrated beam weapon fire. The Eric responded with surprising coordination, their ships moving like a single organism. Several alien vessels erupted in silent explosions, but the Eric formation quickly closed gaps and returned fire. Energy beams of shifting colors struck human ships, causing shields to flare brightly. "Shield status," Lee demanded. "Holding at 70%, came the reply. But they're probing for weaknesses. On the tactical cruiser Dauntless, Commander Sung monitored the battle from a secondary command center. His ship was part of the fleet's flanking group, targeting alien support vessels. "They're deploying something," reported Commander Sung as strange readings appeared on his screens. Energy readings off the charts. Without warning, a wave of distorted gravity spread through the battlefield. 6 human vessels lost propulsion, drifting helplessly. Crew members inside floated from their stations as artificial gravity failed. Emergency systems activated, but the ships remained vulnerable. "All vessels, evasive maneuvers," Lee ordered. "Protect the disabled ships." "Athena, analysis," demanded Admiral Lee. "The Eric have deployed a gravity weapon that disrupts our inertial systems," the AI responded. "Adapting countermeasures, but adaptation will require 13 minutes. Lee studied the tactical display. "We don't have 13 minutes. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels implement Maneuver Hydra." The human fleet split into 3 groups. The first drew the aliens' fire, while the second and third circled to attack from opposite vectors. It was a desperate move, but standing still meant certain defeat. The Eric focused their attack on the most vulnerable human ships. 2 cruisers exploded as their reactors went critical. A third managed to restore partial power, but remained crippled. Admiral Lee watched the battle unfold with growing concern. The human fleet was fighting well, but the aliens' superior numbers were telling. More ships reported damage with each passing minute. "Admiral," HFY reported, "at current attrition rates, we will lose 37% of the fleet before achieving victory." Lee's jaw tightened. "Unacceptable. We need to neutralize that gravity weapon." On the scout vessel Pathfinder, Lieutenant Kang was running detailed scans of the alien flagship. His small ship had managed to slip close to the massive vessel during the confusion of battle. "Captain, the alien flagship's shield modulation changes when they fire their gravity weapon," Kang reported, excitement in his voice. "There's a pattern to it." Captain Han leaned forward in his command chair. "Show me." Kang sent the data to the main screen. The flagship's energy signature showed a distinct fluctuation just before and during the firing of its main weapon. "Athena, confirm this observation," Captain Han ordered. "Confirmed. There is a 2.7-second window when their defensive systems are vulnerable." Han immediately forwarded the finding to Admiral Lee. "This could be our only chance." The information spread through the fleet. 3 heavy cruisers moved into position, charging their main weapons to maximum power. "Wait for my signal," Lee ordered. "We'll only get one shot at this." Minutes passed as the battle raged. More human ships reported damage, and the aliens prepared to fire their gravity weapon again. Energy buildup detected in the alien flagship, Athena announced. "Gravity weapon charging." All targeted vessels, prepare to fire, Lee commanded. On my mark. The alien weapon discharged, sending another wave of distorted gravity across the battlefield. As it did, the flagship's shields fluctuated exactly as Lieutenant Kang had observed. Fire, Lee ordered. When the aliens deployed their gravity weapon again, 3 human warships fired precisely at the flagship's exposed power core. Their beams converged on a single point, piercing the momentarily vulnerable shields. The alien flagship didn't explode immediately. Instead, cascading failures moved across its hull like a wave. Secondary explosions followed, growing in intensity until the massive vessel broke apart in a blinding flash. The explosion rippled through the alien formation. Without their command vessel, the Eric fleet fell into disarray. Ships moved erratically, some colliding with each other. Their coordinated attack patterns dissolved into chaos. Press the advantage, Lee ordered. All vessels, target their remaining command ships. The human fleet regrouped quickly, focusing fire on the larger alien vessels. Without central coordination, the Eric couldn't maintain their defensive formation. Human ships penetrated their lines, attacking from multiple vectors. Within hours, the remaining alien ships were retreating toward the system's edge. Some attempted to jump to hyperspace, but many were destroyed before they could escape. As the human forces regrouped, Admiral Lee received a priority communication. "Admiral, we've captured an intact alien communication node," reported Commander Sung. HFY is translating their transmissions now. Lee ordered immediate recovery of the alien technology. The battle wasn't over, but humanity had won its first major engagement with the Eric. In her private quarters, Admiral Lee reviewed the casualty reports. 23 ships lost, over 5,000 personnel dead or missing. The cost had been high, but they had faced an enemy with superior numbers and technology, and prevailed. A communications officer appeared on her screen. "Admiral, Commander Sung's team has recovered the alien device. They're bringing it to the flagship now." Hours later, Lee stood in the science lab as HFY processed the alien data. Commander Sung and his team had risked their lives to retrieve the device from a damaged Eric vessel. "What have we learned?" Lee asked. "The device contains communication protocols and navigational data," HFY replied. "I am beginning to understand their language patterns." "Show me." A holographic display appeared, showing strange symbols and light patterns. HFY highlighted sections as she translated. "It appears the Eric were reporting to someone else," Commander Sung said. "These aren't just battle communications, they're updates to a higher authority." Admiral Lee frowned. "You mean the Eric aren't acting alone?" "That's what the data suggests," HFY confirmed. "They refer repeatedly to containment protocols and quarantine procedures. The attack on New Eden was only the first step in a larger operation." "An operation ordered by whom?" Lee asked. "I'm still working to translate that information," HFY replied. "But one thing is clear. Humanity faces a threat far greater than just the Eric fleet." The council chamber on Earth fell silent as Admiral Lee presented her findings. The room was filled with the highest military and civilian leaders, all gathered to hear the truth about the attack on New Eden. "The Eric are not independent aggressors," she explained. "They are part of a coalition of species that has been monitoring humanity since our first interstellar flights." She activated a hologram showing translated alien communications. Strange symbols floated in the air, each marked with HFY's translation. The council members leaned forward, faces grim as they read. They attacked New Eden because their predictive models suggested humanity would eventually become a threat to their dominance. It was a preemptive strike. Councillor Bake frowned. "So they fear us." "They fear what we might become," Lee corrected. "And now, they know exactly what they've awakened." Admiral Lee showed them footage from the battle at Proxima Centauri. The council watched as human ships fought against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. "The Eric coalition has existed for thousands of years," Lee continued. They call themselves the Guardians. They monitor developing species and determine if they pose a potential threat. And they decided we were dangerous, asked Minister Seo. Yes, their models predicted that human technology would surpass theirs within 2 centuries. They decided to eliminate us before that could happen. The room filled with angry voices. Many called for immediate retaliation against all alien worlds. Others demanded a full military buildup to protect remaining colonies. Admiral Lee waited for the noise to subside. We have an opportunity here. The Eric Coalition didn't expect us to defeat their forces. They didn't know about our secret fleet or ATENA. We've shown them that humanity won't be an easy target. What do you suggest? Asked the council chair. A message, one that makes our position clear. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would establish a permanent defense perimeter around all colonies. Athena would remain active, constantly improving the fleet's capabilities. Admiral Lee personally recorded humanity's response to the aliens. She stood in her dress uniform, medals gleaming under the lights. Behind her hung the Earth flag, a symbol of the home they would protect at all costs. To the leaders of the Eric Coalition, she began. You attacked us without warning or provocation. You targeted civilians, including children. You believed we would be helpless. The message continued with footage from the battle at Proxima Centauri, showing the destruction of the alien flagship and the retreat of their forces. We are not seeking war, Lee continued. Humanity wishes to live in peace with all species, but we will defend ourselves with every means at our disposal. Her final words were simple but clear. You have 2 choices, peaceful coexistence or devastating consequences. The decision is yours. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, in all formats that the alien technology might understand. It traveled at light speed to every corner of nearby space, and was carried by special messenger vessels to more distant systems. Across the galaxy, on worlds humans had never seen, alien leaders received the transmission. They watched as their supposedly superior forces were decimated by a species they had underestimated. On the Eric homeworld, Supreme Commander Krell studied the human message with his council. The alien leader's gray skin flushed dark with anger as he watched his fleet destroyed. We miscalculated, admitted strategic analyst Frill. Their defensive capabilities far exceed our projections. Their AI warfare systems are generations ahead of ours. Krell stared at the frozen image of Admiral Lee. How could we have missed this? Our observers reported they were just beginning to explore their own system. They must have been developing in secret, Frill replied. Their fleet appeared fully formed, as if they had anticipated our attack. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Eric Coalition had failed to contain a developing species. If we launch another attack, they will be ready, said Military Director Morn. And now they know about the Coalition. They could reach out to other species we've marked for containment. Krell's outer membranes fluttered with stress. The decision before him could affect the Coalition's dominance for centuries to come. Open diplomatic channels, he ordered reluctantly. We cannot risk further confrontation. Back in Earth's solar system, rebuilding had begun. The survivors from New Eden were settled on other colonies or returned to Earth. Plans were drawn up for a new, more heavily defended settlement. In orbit around New Eden, reconstruction had begun. The colony would rebuild, stronger than before. Lieutenant Commander Sung stood at the observation deck, watching as Admiral Lee's shuttle prepared to depart. What happens now? He asked. Admiral Lee gazed at the stars. Now we prepare. Peace through strength is still peace, Commander, but we'll never be caught unprepared again. Sung nodded. The survivors are asking to return to the surface. They want to rebuild. And so they shall, Lee replied. With our protection this time. Below them, the first construction ships were already landing. The colony would be rebuilt with defense systems integrated from the start. Deep bunkers, Orbital weapons platforms and early warning systems would ensure no one could ever again attack without warning. As her shuttle accelerated toward the waiting fleet, Lee thought of her sister's family and the thousands of other colonists who had perished. Their sacrifice had revealed a universe more dangerous than anyone had imagined and awakened humanity's full potential in response. In the weeks that followed, the first alien diplomatic vessel arrived at the edge of the solar system. It came alone, unarmed, broadcasting peace signals on all frequencies. Humanity's message had been received and understood. The war fleet remained deployed, a silent guardian at the edge of human space. Ships patrolled colony worlds, while others explored deeper into space, mapping potential threats and opportunities. HFY continued to analyze the alien data, learning more about the species that shared the galaxy. Some might be friends, others would remain threats, but all would know that humanity had earned its place among the stars. Ready, vigilant, and clear in its message to the galaxy. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The end.